labor will get better deployed locally and their attentions will move away from the sentiment weakness that they are going through. And for all that you know, you may be shocked at the end of 3 months that UP actually is registering growth in spite of this. So you go back, what, 3 years back or so when monsoon was declared below average and tractor registered growth, purely on infra projects that got announced across the country. So I think the governments will react very quickly and very differently rather than the old traditional manner.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, this is Pradeep from Phillip Capital. Sir, if you can give some color as to your collection efficiency ratio during the quarter and how that stacks in terms of your monthly collection efficiency, if you can break it into January, February and March, and whether that unseasonal rains or your special rains in March have impacted your collection efficiency in March vis-a-vis your same month last year.
Let me start with March. I was just looking at number. We are 109% collection efficiency in March, which is equal to last March.
Okay.
And overall year, I think was what, something like 94% or something, which was also exactly like last year or almost like last year, but on a higher current demand. So which means absolute money collected is more than previous year, while the percentage is still the same.
Okay.
See, I just want to once again mention to you that our customers may not have an ability to pay 3-4 installments at a time when they become high overdue. But they do have an ability to pay either one installment or part installment every month if you chase very regularly. Because we should not forget that almost all these products are livelihood products. If they can't pay me a part of the installment, their chances of survival itself is questioned. It's a question of how many times are you able to reach him in difficult times and therefore collect your money, versus how many times you wait for him to come and pay, therefore you collect nothing.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned 109% collection efficiency was in March month only?
Only 1 month.
And what will be for the quarter?
Quarter maybe some 94, 96%, because overall average has been 93 for the year.
No, because in your earlier conversations, if I'm not wrong, we were expecting about 105% collection efficiency for the March quarter.
Yeah, so what's the question?
I mean, for this March quarter, normally, what is the collection efficiency ratio and what is the actual ratio this quarter?
Okay, do we have only March? But we can give it to you, but it will not be very different from last quarter, because if we were 109 in March and last March also 109, my guess is we will not be very different. Maybe 1% here or there, maybe there, but otherwise, I don't know what is this 105 that you're saying, but 109 is our March number, and I know for sure Jan Feb would be in the vicinity of 95, 96 kind of a situation. So we should have ended up at 101, 102 overall for the quarter.
Correct me if I'm wrong, in last 2 quarters, normally you have a collection efficiency ratio of about 98%, which was about 93% in actual terms. Am I right?
Our third quarter was miserable.
So 93% even below than that?
Even in that quarter you're asking, was it 93?
Yeah.
It would not have been, because you see our NPA numbers had jumped in that quarter.
Okay.
It would not have been 93, it would have been some 90s and 91s or something like that.
Okay, okay. Okay.
Is we can share that.
Yeah, but we can share with you.
Okay.
But,
you can send a communication.
I don't know, I mean, how will it, I mean, what exactly do you want to know by
See,
this?
I want to know whether normally what has been the trend, we have slipped in earlier 2 quarters, right?
3 quarters, not 2.
Yeah, 2 to 3 quarters. So
Yeah.
whether we have covered that, or still there is, some kind of delay which is happening, or postponement which is happening on those which were due in last 3 quarters.
Just go by one comment that I made. Our customer do not have ability to pay 5 installments at a time. So we would not have covered for whatever we have slipped. We would have substantially covered, but not fully covered.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Okay. Secondly, as you mentioned,
Secondly, no, this is fourthly.
no, I'm coming to my next question.
I'm just kidding, don't worry.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, your strategy will continue to penetrate deeper into rural geography. And if I look at your distance between branches, you have already, come down from 100 kilometers to now about 50, 55 odd kilometers, right? How far can we go deeper into rural geography? And
We have 6 lakhs villages in the country. Our understanding is 2 lakh villages are not commercially viable to do big business. So we have 4 lakh villages. We are there somewhere around 2 lakh plus village. So we have to cover another 2 lakh village. So which will mean if you want another 1,000 branch, there is a scope to add over a period of time.
okay. Okay. And some guidance on your GNP number where you
I hope people don't mistake that it's between you and me alone.
no, because you know in last con call you mentioned that you are expecting GNP ratio to peak at about 8 and then move backwards. So whether you
अरे
continue to
यार
maintain
अच्छा नहीं करेगा तो आप लोग पूछते हैं अच्छा किया तो 8 तक क्यों नहीं गया पूछते हैं तुम ऐसा क्या करता है यार उतना
I'm
ऐसा
not
भी
saying
मत
whether
करो।
okay.
Don't force us to take it to 8 just because we said sometime it will be 8, yeah?
No, I'm not forcing. I'm just saying whether you know we still remain keep our fingers crossed in terms of that number will we will see in next 2 quarters or whether things have
Let me
changed.
for the benefit of everybody say while these are all percentages and it will have some denominator effect, if the asset grows 5 will start looking like 3 and all that. So don't go by all of that, but simply we look at one number of customer who are delinquent. Okay, as of 31st March, I think we have something like 66,000 customer or whatever, and they were almost the same number in April, 1 year back. Right? And I had explained this in the third quarter that while the NPS have jumped, number of customers have not jumped except that the provision within the buckets have gone up, which is why coverage ratios were not going up. Now if you see the coverage ratio has also gone up, that whosoever has not been able to collect moving upward, the provision has become higher and the number of customers have been controlled.
Right.
Come on, let's move to the next one. Ask some business questions.
Hello, sir. This is Gautam Jain from GC Investments. Good numbers. First, right now we are into vehicle financing and rural housing financing. Do we have any plans to go into other asset financing or like consumer durable or SME kind of? First. Second question, whenever there is rural India growth story come, whether it's a growth slowing down or growth going up, MMFS come first. There is media, business expert, new channels everywhere. Do we have any plans to go into urban market with any of the products? Thank you.
One is, of course, other products. When you say SME is something which is surely area of big interest to us because of the Mahindra ecosystem itself. You know, large Mahindra suppliers who supply to Mahindra or even to other OEMs, and therefore that's one area of interest. So we have internally decided when it comes to SME, we look at engineering, agri and auto as the 3 industry verticals where we will participate. As you know, currently these industries are also going through tough times and therefore you may not see an aggressive positioning from us, but this is something we will master and try to grow in this industry. So from an SME perspective, clearly that's an area of interest. As far as other asset classes are concerned, at least in the family of automobiles, etc., what is left is only two-wheeler. I don't think we have any big plans to be participant in two-wheeler as a segment because it's a very different cost segment. It requires a different approach, high volume game. The other asset class which is possible is the gold loan. Even there we think this infrastructure, this set of people with these processes, I think it's a fantastic prescription for failure. If we try and go with these branches and start doing gold loan, etc., I think we will have to write it off under CSR only over a period of time. So you'll have to set up altogether a new setup, different skill sets, and I don't think at this stage we are in a hurry, and I want to restate that I don't think we have huge pressure on the asset side from growth perspective. Today the volumes are subdued, we are also not growing. And we will not do anything silly just to offset that loss of growth by adding new product lines that we don't understand. We will not do that. We will wait for an opportune time. Automobile sales will return, tractor sales will pick up, pre-owned vehicle market will open up and we'll get our growth momentum back.
Any plans for inorganic growth?
Tell us some name, we will closely look at it.
Thank you.
So, Manish from Deutsche Bank. If you look the various finance, cars, UVs, tractors, at the industry level, which of these do you think can deliver double-digit growth in fiscal 16? Especially if you believe that some of the CV demand has been front-loaded, tractors, because of the slowdown or special rains, demand can get impacted. Which industry segment you think can deliver double-digit growth for fiscal 16 for now?
I think new product launch will drive the double-digit growth, which means car segment is what my guess is.
So
because
just
anything which is going to be infra dependent for growth, anything which is going to depend on large manufacturing segment pickup for growth, I think we'll wait for some more time. It's the personal segment where cash flows are not as badly impacted. Therefore, you continue to see that growth momentum coming from car new product launches. So I'm hearing many of the manufacturers earlier they used to do car product launch only for urban centers. We are now hearing them say that we will open it up across. So I guess that car will drive growth. And I also think pre-owned vehicle will grow faster than new vehicle growth in this 1 year.
My second question is, some of us in our community believe that the semi-urban rural is slowing down much more than urban. Do you subscribe to that opinion, and do you believe that the divergence will play out in vehicle finance or vehicle demand going forward?
I mean, definitely, I don't know how to compare it with urban for it to call it as slow or otherwise, but the volumes in rural market has come down. I mean, if tractor is degrowing, it's all rural product, it's not an urban product. So I think it's no guess from anybody. Yes, rural is slowing down, but look at what drives rural growth. It has to be big time infra growth, which is where the labor deployment therefore will happen, and therefore the cash flows of that market being better. It has to be farm segment definitely registering growth, and therefore rural growth will happen. And all of this are subdued, and therefore definitely rural is stable, degrowing, sentiments are low. Now, how does one compare this to urban? I don't know, because on a sheer size basis, urban was always higher than rural. We put some growth rate around it because earlier rural was 10, became 20, we said 100% growth. That percentage wise, if you look at, I don't have that access to say whether urban is growing faster, rural is growing slow, whatever. But the drivers of rural is definitely not at its best, and therefore rural growth is slowing down. Now, comparison I may not want to make, but definitely it is. Like, if you look at absolute volumes of any of the product in rural in the last 3 years, it will suggest that it is selling less and being bought less.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I have two questions. This is Hiren from Goldman. One for you, Ramesh, and another for the insurance company.
Can you reverse the question? First the insurance.
Okay, that's more of a slightly macro-related question. With a lot of farmer suicides, which we have been seeing in the press and around, one of the areas which people say is the lack of crop insurance. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts about what could be done to improve the overall crop insurance penetration, and as a company whether you can do anything or whether you are doing anything about it. And yeah, second question I'll put later. Yeah.
No, so this is actually the current challenge for this country, because if I just share some statistic which is available in the public domain, in the last 17 years there have been more than 3 lakh suicides. So it's a very startling number. And for a country where you're agrarian dependent, and if these are the kind of startling numbers, obviously there is a huge responsibility, I would say, not even a duty, and it's a duty for all of us to find some solution for crop insurance especially. Now, there have been a couple of challenges. One, the kind of details which are required to actually administer a crop insurance. We need to build that infrastructure to do that. It is not about the distribution of a crop insurance, which probably is slightly easier because we can find different mechanisms through NGOs or through various other gram panchayats to distribute it. But the bigger challenge is how do you actually settle a claim? And currently, the way it is being handled, or whatever has been suggested, given our current limitations on the meteorological department data which is available or not available, is that claim settlement gets done in zones, and so it's not like if you have a farm, you need to settle claim for that farm. So we don't have that micro level data available to settle a claim for that. Okay, so with the use of technology, so there is a lot of optimistic outlook which we have, is that because of the use of technology, now you see Google Maps being used extensively, there will be different tools which will come up, and a lot of companies are working towards finding solutions to this, because that is the biggest challenge to overcome. If we can find solutions to crop insurance to be distributed and claims being settled correctly for those people, I think we would have had a biggest opportunity in this country to really grow very fast. So there is a lot of work happening from the insurance company side, because currently the Agriculture Insurance Corporation of India, AIC of I, is the one which is actually administering these various schemes. And they're getting subsidized by the government. But unless we find a viable proposition, which should be commercially viable for insurance companies also to participate and do it, so regulator is looking at it, and insurance companies are trying to find out solutions. We as an insurance broking company are also looking at it very intensely, because we feel it's an opportunity for us to go and distribute more products to the rural segment. So as and when we get some solutions, obviously we'll share it with you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. The other question on the core asset financing business, you said there are 4 or 5 signs whether the growth is coming back or not, in terms of whether discounts are going away or whether the second-hand vehicle demand is improving and all. Are you seeing any of those signs playing out in any of your markets, or it's currently not happening?
I thought when I listed out, it was only because we are not seeing those signs. So, not yet. Not yet. The answer is not yet.
This is Mayur from Wealth Managers. I had a question on rural housing.
Thank you.
We have been present across 9 states for quite a while. Last year, if I remember correctly, we were at around 36,000 villages coverage. Now we are around 40,000 villages. Our parent is present in 2 lakh villages. And if you look at the number of states covered, if you look at, yes, the AUM has been growing, I understand, and we have doubled, every 2 years we are doubling. But in terms of coverage, in terms of spreading out, do we believe that we have lacked our own targets, or could it have been more, or what is stopping us from that?
No, I think deliberately we were following a strategy of more intensive coverage this year, because that has a beneficial impact on your operating costs. I'll just try and explain. I mean, if you go to one village and try and collect an EMI from only one customer, our typical EMIs are, let's say, about 2,500 rupees. So you can imagine the cost involved in that, because the person has to travel maybe 50 kilometers to collect that EMI, and maybe go thrice to collect that EMI. Instead of that, if the same village, or let's say 2-3 villages on the same route, you have maybe 15 customers, your cost is brought under control. So that was the entire intention behind going more intensive coverage this year. And like I mentioned in my brief speech, we are going to be doing both. More intensive, continue the strategy of more intensive coverage, and then start looking at more states this year, as well as more villages in the same state. So that's the increase in the width is going to happen this year.
Okay, thank you. One for insurance.
Sure.
What would be the premium collection you said?
Premium was 1,000 crores, 1,002.
So what would be the ratio sustainable for premium to income over a period of, as we move ahead? Will it be remaining at 15% kind of levels which we see, or?
Actually, it's a factor of multiple product. It's the product portfolio mix. So today we are concentrated largely on the motor insurance portfolio. So as and when that mix changes for some reason, like for instance, third party premium has been increased from 1st of April. So that will give us some little boost on the premium part, but there is no direct income attached to that. So the ratios will change based on how the market actually changes its configuration.
Yeah, but broadly as we see next 3-4 years, do we see that this ratio anyway?
Yeah, we are trying to maintain that ratio. We're trying to maintain that.
You added a color on the reinsurance. In
Yes.
terms of numbers, what it must have added to our...
It's not a significant, I think it's still in the business, in the infancy stage, I would say. Here the business, what Ramesh was also alluding to, is building a relationship, because reinsurance business happens largely on trust. So today we are able to build relationships across 30 countries. Okay, so it's a small business, but relationship is important. In fact, it will happen for the next 1.5 to 2 years also. We'll focus on building that relationship. Once we are at a particular level of relationship, only then the business transactions start happening. So right now it is not a very significant portion in terms of its business contribution, but it is definitely in terms of its presence and relationship building.
Thank you.
So can we have the remaining questions during the dinner? Or maybe 2 more questions? I think, yeah. They have the one.
Start.
Either mic though?
Hi.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity. Just one question on rural housing finance. If you can explain in terms of business sourcing, like for auto loans and all, we have dealerships and all, but as far as rural housing is concerned, how do we go about sourcing these 1 lakh rupee loans?
Our entire sourcing is through our own employees. So we really have to go to a village, hold what we call a Gram Sabha, which is, gather about 20 odd people and start talking to them. We do leverage the Mahindra Finance, not just the infrastructure, but also the customer base. So the entry to a particular village is more often than not provided to us by a Mahindra Finance customer, who introduces us to the local leadership, villagers, etc., and then we set the ball rolling. It's all entirely in-house. We don't have any channel partner.
Thank you.
And the last question now.
No, he's coming.
Others have to hear you.
Hi. Listening to this way you source your housing finance loans, basically, does microfinance come as a natural extension to your business on a larger scale? If I take a longer perspective, say 5-10 year perspective.
The microfinance customer would be a shade below the kind of customer we are talking about. Our customer is, let's say, 1,50,000 average income, whereas the microfinance customer is typically no income, where he's given, or she is rather given an 50,000, not even 50,000, a 10,000 rupee loan, and trained to do something to generate income. So really you're talking about a customer who's got practically no income, and then you develop the person and go forward.
Secured, unsecured.
Yeah, and of course we are...
Microfinance is an unsecured.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a secured. So that's the...
And one small question was like observing other microfinance companies who operate predominantly in rural areas, those people have seen really low gross NPAs and stuff like that. So I just wanted to pick your brain if you have any perspective on that. Why does that segment see such a low non-performing asset base, and why do the bigger rural people see a higher?
One key difference between microfinance and any asset-based lending is the microfinance borrower is always told that he's going to get slightly more loan every year if he pays. And the second thing, of course, is the peer pressure, because it's a joint liability. Typically, it's a joint liability. Since the EMI is very small, there are a lot of times when people sort of share the money and pay up for a defaulter, because they all know that if the payment is not made next year, they will not, or after 50 weeks, they will not be entitled to go from 50,000, from 10,000 to maybe 15,000 or 20,000. And that increase in their loan is crucial for them, because that's the only way they can increase their income, since it's an income generating kind of asset. So that's I think a crucial difference between what they do and what we do.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Now I request you all to join us for the dinner, and during that you can continue with your questions.